Chicks dig the car. This is why Superman works alone.
Critics are calling it the best Batman ever.
Yeah!
Schwarzenegger and Thurman are the best summer villains on the big screen. George Clooney, Chris O'Donnell, and Alicia Silverstone make a great action-packed trio. The event of the summer is here. Batman and Robin, rated PG-13. Now playing at a theater near you.
What a piece of fucking shit. Anyway, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my epic rant on the 1997 travesty, Batman and Robin. Now, I'm gonna admit this. It's embarrassing, but it's the truth. I used to love this movie. In fact, as a kid, I watched this the most out of all of the Batman movies. I was that kid who didn't know any better, that Warner Brothers suckered their parents into giving away their hard-earned money for this film. I was that audience. Not only did I have my parents pay to see such torture in the theater and experience such pain, I also had them buy the toys, buy the action figures, and on top of that, when it came out on video, I had them buy the film on VHS. I was the problem. And I'm going to admit it. And you know what? I'm probably not the only one. But as I got older, my eyes opened up and I saw how shitty this film truly is. And as an adult, I can't fucking stand this movie anymore. This film is one of the most embarrassing and pathetic comic book films ever made. That being said, I'm not going to sit here and blame Joel Schumacher. And if I have any other moments in this video where I stumble over my words, I apologize. But this is going to be a heated video. So there's probably going to be a lot of moments where that happens. Yeah, I'm not going to blame Joel Schumacher for this film's failure. Because he did exactly what Warner Brothers asked him to do. They asked him to make a toy commercial. They even referred to the film as toyetic. They wanted the film to be toyetic. Whatever the fuck that means. That's not even a word. But that's what they wanted from Joel Schumacher. And he delivered on that front. At best, I think his direction is mediocre in this film. It's not that special. And I think a big reason for that is because his heart was not in it. And there are some moments where I feel he is to blame for some of the film's failings. Like, for instance, the opening credits with all these different tight up-close shots of Batman and Robin's ass and their cod pieces. But other than that, I don't think the direction is that bad. There are some moments with car chases and with motorcycle stunts that are kind of fun to watch. And I think he definitely still has the same amount of dynamic energy with his direction that he's known for. He creates some really nice looking shots when it comes to his use of lighting and the different ways that he works around the camera in terms of angles and perspective and so on. There are some moments where the direction is a little flat, but I think that's, like I said, I think it's because he just didn't have that much passion for this film. He did it because he was contractually obligated to do it. He couldn't back out. So he's like, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do what Warner Brothers asked me to do. I'm going to try to have as much fun as I can, but I'm not 100% all in on this idea, but, what else am I going to do? And at the same time, maybe he should have quit, but people don't really understand how hard it is to just do that in Hollywood, because there are a lot of moments, especially during this time, if you quit and you refuse to do what a studio asked you to do, you would never work in Hollywood again. So he was stuck between a rock and a hard place. He did the best that he could when it comes to this toyetic vision that Warner Brothers wanted. And I feel so bad for Joel, because for years prior to his death, he was apologizing for this film. People were continuing to tie him to this movie. And even to this day, there are people who tie his legacy to this film. And to me, that is so unfair. And it's also a load of bullshit to me that a lot of people considered him to be a bad director because he directed such a shitty film in Batman and Robin. That's not really accurate to me at all. Joel Schumacher was a good director. He had a really good track record. If you take out films like Batman and Robin seems like an outlier, not the norm. I mean, this is the guy who directed The Lost Boys, Flatliners, Falling Down, 8mm, just to name a few. And for a lot of people, he's just the guy who did Batman and Robin, which is bullshit. So, Joel, to me, does not deserve the blame for this film. He does not deserve the entirety of the hate and the derision that this film gets, understandably so. But he doesn't deserve all of that. And may he rest in peace. And I just really get a little upset when I see people try to act like Joel Schumacher was a hack director, that he was every bit as awful as some of the worst directors out there, like Uwe Boll, because he directed this movie. And then his direction of this film isn't even that bad. It's just average. You want to know what's bad about this film? The script by Akiva Goldsman. That's what's bad about this movie. This script is atrocious. It's fucking insulting. It's a really bad joke. There are so many failed attempts at humor in this film. It might as well be a graveyard for puns, because none of them land. None of them work. And some of them don't even make any sense. What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age. What the fuck are you talking about, Arnold? Did your brain cells also freeze when you had that accident? Mr. Fuckhead? Dinosaurs didn't exist back during the Ice Age. They were dead. I mean, how do you... And then, of course, you have other scenes like Mr. Freeze trying to get people to sing a fucking song. With the song from The Year Without Santa Claus. Mr. Heat Miser, Mr. Snow, Mr. Frost, whatever the fuck it is. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. Nobody was asking for that. I mean, there's just so many failings, flops, and fuck-ups in this script. Let's just start off with the fact that there's way too many fucking plots. Way too many characters. It's a clusterfuck. So you have this whole thing involving Alfred, who has a disease and he's dying and you need to find a cure. Then you have this whole thing with Batgirl, who is now Alfred's niece. So you have that going on, and she's leading a double life where she's like a motorcyclist and is doing stunt racing at night, and she's supposed to find Alfred's brother. So we have that going on. Then you have Robin being a stuck up, jealous prick, just being a whiny bitch all the time. It's tired of being in Batman's shadow. Great. That's exactly what we wanted to see from Robin. I already don't like Robin enough as it is. Now you make him insufferable. Then you have Batman, who's being equally as stuck up, equally as full of shit, and having his head up his ass. So now you make Batman unlikable. Great. I don't like Batman. And then you have this whole thing involving Poison Ivy, who's trying to manipulate Batman and Robin. And there's this really pathetic back and forth where they are fighting over Poison Ivy, and it's just really hard to watch. And it's not just because of the Bat credit card, but I mean that's a big reason why. But it's also because it's just, who the fuck wants to see Batman and Robin go goo goo gaga or go fuck or fall head over heels over Poison Ivy? Nobody fucking wants to see that. What the fuck is this? A romantic comedy? 10 Things I Hate About Poison Ivy? So you have this whole thing going on with that. You have Bane, who's just this runt of a guy who got venom and becomes a fucking muscle-bound wrestler who can't even fucking speak. Great. So Bane's just now a rip-off of the Hulk. I think he even said Bane Smash at one time. I could be wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised. So you've got all these fucking characters. You've got Batman and Robin. You've got Batgirl. Now you have Mr. Freeze, who's doing all these fucking annoying, awful ice puns that are just cringe-inducing and all kinds of embarrassing, especially for Arnold Schwarzenegger. And what's the plot? What is the plot? What and why is there a reason to care about anything? I don't give a shit whether Batman and Robin get frozen and they get shattered into a million fucking pieces because they're written in ways where they're unlikable. The villains, they are given a ton of screen time, but their plot, what? They're going to freeze Gotham City? That's all their plan? The plan is to freeze Gotham City, and then Poison Ivy's going to let her plants take over. That's all the plan is. It's not interesting. It's not unique. It's not compelling. And of course, they're also trying to manipulate Batman and Robin and have them fight each other. So there's that going on too. But it's just a bunch of who gives a shit? Who cares? I don't. And it makes the film so boring. It's like 2 hours. And nothing is really of any substance when it comes to this story and in this narrative. And you got all these really bad attempts at humor. The levels of camp are lethal in this screenplay, where they were somewhat measured in Batman Forever. That's not the case at all in this movie. At times, this makes the 60s Batman show look serious in comparison. So yeah, you have all these pathetic attempts at humor. The action moments aren't that exciting. You have these really lame uh, shots or attempts to tap into pop culture, like Robin saying cowabunga out of fucking nowhere. You're not a Ninja Turtle! Shut up, Robin! Just stop, man! Cowabunga! Cowabunga my balls! So, yeah, this script sucks. And then the cast. I mean, George Clooney's a good actor. He's got charisma. None of that is really on display here. His performance as Batman is easily the worst I've seen when it comes to Batman on film, because he doesn't lift a single fucking finger here. He doesn't even make a attempt to make his portrayal of Batman believable or authentic. He's just being Clooney with a bat suit. Zero effort. He doesn't give a shit. I don't know if that's because of the script. I don't know if it's because of his take on the character. Maybe it's a bit of both. But at the end of the day, this doesn't cut it. And then you have Chris O'Donnell, who was annoying, and I didn't like him in Batman Forever, and he's just even more irritating in this movie. My rubber lips are immune to your charms. And him just whining and bitching and moaning. Well, I'm sick of being in your shadow, Batman. Where's my signal? Where's the Robin signal? Here's the signal for you to get the fuck out of my face. How about that, Robin? With that bird boy? Shut the fuck up. And then you have Uma Thurman, who plays Poison Ivy. Uma Thurman's a gorgeous gal. But her acting in this is just abysmal. It's just all kinds of laughable. She's not intimidating at all. And the sequences where she's trying to be sexy, it's a total flop for me, because she's trying so hard. It comes across as if she's just playing an act. It doesn't even seem like she's legitimately sexy. It comes across as someone who is socially awkward, who's trying to be sexy while they are intoxicated. It's a really bad performance. And then on top of that, you have Arnold Schwarzenegger just hamming it up to unhealthy and unfathomable levels here as Mr. Freeze. Ice to see you, Batman. Everything freezes. It's just... God. Arnold's so out of place in this. And I love Arnold Schwarzenegger. At least, good amount of his performances. But I do like Arnold a lot. I like a lot of Arnold's films. But this is just pathetic. It's atrocious. It is. It's a atrocious performance. It's just all kinds of bad. And it was just an extreme case of miscasting. He did not fit this role at all. And then you got Alicia Silverstone, who I don't mind in things like Clueless, but here it seems like she doesn't have a clue. And it's just as ditzy as all hell, and the character just doesn't fit with Batgirl. It seemed like she was just playing Cher from Clueless, but this time around she's in a Batman movie. Then you got Michael Gough as Alfred. He's trying, but it's sad to watch because he's he's older and he's playing a character who's dying. And it was one of the last films he did, too, if I remember correctly, before he died in real life. You got Pat Hingle, who is just wasted as Commissioner Gordon. There's a really bad scene where he's getting manipulated by Poison Ivy's pheromone dust, and it's just embarrassing for Pat Hingle. You got John Glover, who's just being over the top as humanly possible, as Jason Woodrue, who's this character they created solely for the film, who's this crazy scientist who employed Pamela Isley and killed her, which led her to becoming Poison Ivy. It's like he's got the same kind of crazy frizzy hairdo as Christopher Walken in Batman Returns, but the performance is nowhere near as nuanced and nowhere near as good. Oh, and also he created Bane. Go figure. And you have Elle Macpherson, who plays Julie Madison, who is Bruce's girlfriend in this. And she's completely useless. What was even the point? They tried to make this character into something a little more important for Bruce because she's having scenes where she's trying to get Bruce to commit. But they have no chemistry, Clooney and McPherson, and she barely has any screen time to even make that much of an impact or an impression. Oh, and by the way, I think Jesse Ventura also has a cameo in this as one of the guards. Coolio appears as a cameo. Apparently, it's some guy named Jonathan Crane. Yeah, Scarecrow. Because Coolio was supposed to play Scarecrow in Batman Triumphant. Fucking Coolio was supposed to play Scarecrow in the next Batman movie if this film was as big of a hit as Warner Brothers was expecting it to be. And I will admit, when it comes to the other technical aspects of this film, it's not terrible. It's got some nice looking cinematography by Stephen Goldblatt. The editing is solid by Dennis Verkler and Mark Stevens. It even has a good score by Elliot Goldenthal, even though it's kind of a mixed bag for me. I don't know if I would say it's a good score. That's probably a little much. The soundtrack is good. It has a lot of good songs on it. Gotham City by R. Kelly. The End is the Beginning. The Beginning is the End by the Smashing Pumpkins. The soundtrack is infinitely better than the movie itself. But the score by Elliot Goldenthal, it's fine. It just seems like it's a lazy score. It's a cut and paste score. It just seems like he used the same cues from Batman Forever and just repeated them throughout the score with very little variation. Not much difference. The only new kind of music he did was the stuff for Nora Freeze, and I actually think that was pretty good. But that's why the score is just pretty mediocre. The film definitely has a budget behind it, $160 million. And I think there are some other merits that I do feel the film deserves some credit for. I think the costume design is pretty good. Some of the costumes are a little lame or a little crappy, like Batgirl's suit. Batman's suit in this is a little bland, a little drab. It's just gray, just silver. But Robin's costume, at least in the first half of the film, and even in the second half where he's wearing the more winter version, I actually think was cool. I think Robin looked the best he ever did in this film in terms of his costume, with the red and the dark blue. Uh, Mr. Freeze, I think it's an awesome looking suit. I've always thought it looked cool with the blue lighting and the metallic armor. And Poison Ivy, the costumes were fine. There were some moments where it was a little too much for me, but for what they were trying to do, it worked all right. Uh, I would say that's kind of a hit and miss costume design for me, though, because there were some of the outfits that I just I was just like, what? Like that weird thing where she has like fake nails on her gloves. I don't know what the fuck they were trying to do there. I think it was supposed to be like flowers or something, but it just didn't translate well. Bane, for the look that they were going for, he looked fine, even though the character is just mistreated so poorly in this narrative, in this script. He's just a brute. Might as well just call him Brute, not Bane, because he has no intelligence and he gets his ass kicked way too easily. Oh, just kick the tubes out of his head and then he turns back into a runt. Yeah, because Bane sucks in this movie. Bane's just a henchman of Poison Ivy. He's just there to be her muscle. That's it. And speaking of things that suck, the fight choreography, awful. None of the fights have any of the same excitement or adrenaline as the fights in Batman Forever or even in the Burton Batman movies. And then the action sequences, a lot of them, except for a few exceptions, like a couple motorcycle chases or a bit with the Batmobile, are really lifeless and flatlined and just the epitome of non-excitement. It's just dull. They're just dull to watch. Despite all the attempts by Schumacher to make it exciting. I'm sorry. Doesn't matter what you do with the camera. A shot of Batman and Robin playing ice hockey with a diamond is not exciting. It's not fun to watch. Because the stakes are so low, and then on top of that, you just don't really give a flying fuck about any of it. And at 125 minutes, this film drags so fucking much. Because, like I said, the script is so bad, it does nothing to immerse you in the narrative. It just keeps you frozen. And it's not the kind of frozen where, oh, you're frozen in place and you're glued to the screen. No, you're just frozen. And you're just stuck there. Having to watch such absolutely terrible, god-awful shit unfold on the screen. It's just one of those movies where you just can't wait till it's over. You're like halfway through it and you're looking at your watch or you're looking at your phone and you're like, fuck, I still have an hour left of this shit. And then by the time it's over, it's a relief because you're like, oh my God, I never have to sit through such torture ever again. Is it the worst comic book film I've seen? No. I've seen worse. Seen comic book films that piss me off more than Batman and Robin. But it's still really fucking bad, and it's still one of the worst. It's definitely the worst Batman movie. Hands down. No contest. Because I can't even think of anything other than the technical merits, some bits of the score, the soundtrack, some of the costume design, and maybe a couple chase sequences that I actually liked. Everything else about the film, I hated. I hated having to sit through it. I hated having to experience it. And I still can't believe that I was so deluded. I was so, I don't know, immature. I was so out of it as a kid that I thought this shit was good. Not good. I thought this was great. I thought this was great. And now I can't even barely sit through this film without cringing so hard that my brain and the rest of my organs fall right out of my asshole. So, I really don't know what else to say about Batman and Robin, except it is every bit as bad as you think it is. It's one of those films that has a reputation for being one of the worst comic book films, and it definitely is. And the two characters, the scientist characters that are featured in the climax that are screaming their heads off as they're being stuck on this telescope as it's falling down to the ground below. That's the perfect encapsulation of what it's like to be an audience member watching this movie. You're those helpless scientists that are just strapped to this fucking giant turd screaming for help. Pinhead could not come up with torture that is as painful as it is to sit through and just subject yourself to this movie. I would rather have Arnold Schwarzenegger dressed as Mr. Freeze dip my ass in liquid nitrogen while cosplayers dressed as Batman and Robin beat my fucking balls with a baseball bat than ever having to sit through butt fucking throbbing ever again. Allow me to break the ice. Allow me to break my fucking fist off in your face. Fuck this movie.